This conference will now be recorded.
So welcome everyone to AnCan Advanced Prostate Cancer discussion and group. Tonight is Monday, the 15th of August. As I said, time is flying this summer like crazy. It's already almost the end of the summer. And I'm Herb Geller in the chair, joined by my co-moderators. So we will begin shortly because I don't see any new people have shown up. I will take the chairman's prerogative or the moderator's prerogative and give you my update. So as you all know, I've been having Pluvicto. And when I started Pluvicto, my PSA was somewhere around 6. And after the first Pluvicto, it went somewhere around 3. And then immediately after the second, it went to 2.2. And now 2 days before my next Pluvicto, it's down at 1.6. So to me, that's a significant drop. So I can only tell you I'm pleased at that result. And, hopefully this is only tomorrow's Wednesday will be the third cycle for me. So one can hope that it continues to do its thing. So if anybody wants to comment on that, I'm happy.
Yeah, I do. All I want to say is, can we curse here? Fuck yeah!
What does that mean?
How's the side effect?
I don't have any side effects at all, other than
Great.
I have to sleep alone for 3 days. So, there's no.
Herb,
Yes.
Herb, I do have a question for you. If I remember correctly,
What was your
Let Rick.
If I remember correctly, your PSA crept up right after you had that first.
Right. So correct.
Can you explain that? Because there are people that are concerned about that, and I think it would be helpful to share that. It isn't as simple as, well, I went from 3 to 2 to 1.6.
No. So
there
what
was
happened?
There was a bit of a bump in there.
Right. So let me explain. So after my first Pluvicto, the first PSA measurement was 3 weeks later, and it had gone up. And then 3 weeks later, right before my second, it had dropped to 2.1. Then I had my second Pluvicto, and 3 weeks later, it was 2.2. So it crept up again. And then now it's 3 weeks later, and it's 1.6. So it seems like there's like a little bump up right after in the first couple of weeks. And then it seems to drop because it dropped between 3 weeks after my first Pluvicto and the second Pluvicto, which was like 12 weeks later. So it was quite a, it wasn't linear. Paul is asking, what is Pluvicto? Paul, Pluvicto is PSMA directed therapy with lutetium-177, right? So it's lutetium-177, and we have a link to Pluvicto in the chat box. So there are other people who are getting Pluvicto who are on this call, and so it was approved in April, and we just have to hope that it works for a lot of us.
Herb, this is Al. What was your PSA before your first treatment? I didn't quite understand that.
PSA before my first treatment was about 6. I don't remember exactly.
So it went down to 2.1 after your first treatment?
No, it went up a little after my first treatment, and then 3 weeks after my first treatment, it went up. But
so it went higher than 6.
Right, and then it dropped in the intervening time before my second treatment.
So you had more than one PSA test between your
Right.
first
Well,
and
I
your
suppose
second.
it's every 3 weeks, supposedly based on a 6-week schedule. Only if you remember, for me, there was like a 12-week gap between my first and second treatment because of Novartis's problems with making Pluvicto.
I only had one PSA test between treatments, so I don't really know, all the intervening pieces.
Yes,
My question to you is, you haven't noticed any dry mouth yet?
not yet.
Because
Not yet.
between about after the third treatment or into the fourth treatment, I began to notice it. And like I've said before, by the time I got to the sixth treatment, it was pretty bad.
Right. Well,
Uh,
I expect that it might happen. I don't have any uh, preconceived notions that I'm going to get away with it because the salivary glands make PSMA, as Dr. Bob knows. And so they're a target for this radioactivity.
So I'm 6 months past now, and the dry mouth and taste aberrations have almost completely disappeared. So it does, at least in my case, it seemed to be temporary.
Well, this is
Although
good.
temporary in that 6 months later, I mean, it took 3 months before I started to notice a change. But now it's pretty normal.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And as we'll hear more from other people getting Pluvicto, whether or not they find the same thing. I don't think right now we have enough experience.
Hey,
Anybody
Herb,
else?
are you still on ADT with the
Yes, I am
Pluvicto?
still on Lupron. So I'm not on any other medication other than Lupron and for calcium, denosumab. So I'm not taking Abby anymore or any other second generation anti-androgen.
Herb, it's Len. Congratulations. Very happy to hear this.
Well,
Are
yeah,
you
it's
scheduled?
too early for congratulations. And when it goes down
Well,
to your level, I'll feel.
well, well, I hope you make it and soon. Well, you're scheduled for 6 treatments,
Yes.
and then they're going to stop. There's no continuing from there, regardless of what your PSA is.
Given that right now I'm on the I'm not being paid for right now. I'm on the trial on their expanded access. So that's 6 treatments, and then I've discussed with Nancy and I'm thinking if it's working and it continues and it may, is there a possibility of extending it beyond 6? But I think I'll face that once we get through the first 6.
Herb, my doctor said I couldn't do more. They went back to Novartis and asked if I could do more, and they said no, because I was
Uh-huh.
under
Okay.
that same kind of program.
Uh-huh. But you couldn't get it as a prescription?
Oh, well, no, this was under the compassionate use
Right.
thing.
Right.
I can always go back to. I eventually will go through Medicare, I assume.
Right. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's if I ever need more, that's what I would do.
Right, guys. I mean, I think that at this point, if we think that you can do more than 6 treatments, and we really don't know, then you revert out of managed care if that's how you're getting it right now, and you go back to Medicare. But we just don't know about really many more than 6 treatments. I mean, I think everybody's interested, including Novartis. I mean, we asked Novartis. I hope they'll do this. We asked Novartis to go around all the docs and to gather experience from treating people more than once with Pluvicto, but we don't have that yet. But we're on them. I mean, we're sticking there because we have a feeling that there's going to be a bunch of people who want to come back and re-challenge with the Pluvicto.
I mean, basically, it just got approved in April, so there's nobody who will have had 6 cycles through after approval yet. right? The only those of us who are sort of were in this expanded access situation have had significant numbers of cycles.
Rick did ask about this at that seminar, and they did say they'd have information about it in September.
Right.
So I
Right.
think maybe they may have had some experience with it at this point.
Okay.
I mean, I think there is some experience with it, Jeff. The problem is that it hasn't been recorded, it hasn't been organized. And what we've said to our friends at Novartis is it's important that they do get this organized. And I think they recognize that. I mean, of course, it's in their best interest if they can sell more of the drug through rechallenging, they'd love to do it. But, you know, we're sort of thinking ahead more than they're thinking ahead. Because we got people like Al who want to come back and maybe do some more.
Right, but I think, but it also is going to depend on the side effects. I mean, here, if people have significant taste and dry mouth after 6 cycles, they may want a big break before they give it again.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think we need guidelines as to how we treat, and we don't have those guidelines yet in terms of rechallenging.
I think it's too early, Rick. We'll get
No,
there.
I agree with you. I agree. Well, you see, on the one hand, you might think it's too early based on the FDA, but you've got to remember that in some centers like Peter Mac in Australia, they've been administering this since 2016.
Right.
And before. So they may have the experience in their records.
Might. Anyhow, we have a lot of guys tonight. Is there any more questions about Pluvicto? Or is anybody going to want to discuss anything more about Pluvicto tonight? Because we might as well talk about it now.
Rick, this is Al.
John.
Rick,
Al?
this is Al. Dr. Calais at UCLA, he has had some experience with doing second rounds or more. I guess during the trials. Have you talked to him about his experience with it?
Well, it's not really for us to talk to him. What we're trying to do is to get Novartis to reach out to Calais, to reach out to the folks at Chicago, to reach out to all the different people that have been using this for a longer period of time, Peter Mac in particular, in Australia. And so they know, I mean, we've told them, we know that Calais has information. We've passed this along to them. But, you know, we don't want to gather that information from one doctor or another. I mean, because we don't know all the doctors who have the experience. This is something that Novartis should be doing. And all we can do as advocates is push them towards collecting that information. Now, if any of you anecdotally want to come on and tell us what you found out, it'd be great. But, you know, we can pass that back to Novartis. But really, this is something Novartis should be doing. And I know that my contacts have gone back to the medical group and they've asked them to put something together. And we're on them, you know, we don't forget it.
Okay. I'd like to move on.
Carlos has a question.
Carlos, go ahead.
I am been on the fence with regard to this treatment because I've also been seeking some surgery for a uretral revision. And my one oncologist said, well, there are some side effects with regard to white cell count dropping in about 10%. I don't know if anybody else has had that issue come up, that surgeons may or may not want to do surgery while you're on this treatment, or if they want you to wait.
I
later.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, yes, it will affect blood counts. I haven't seen any great effect on me yet, but I'm also facing the idea that I may need to get surgery, so it may come up.
I'm curious to hear what your surgeons say if there's a wait time afterward, or if
Yeah,
I just
I
watch
will.
your.
I'll find out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'd like to move on. Peter Kafka, give us an update, please.
Okay, well, I can't remember when I spoke last. I'm on a treatment protocol that I don't think any of you guys are on or have done. So I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but I want to just bounce off a couple of observations I've made. So I'm on Keytruda, which is immunotherapy. It's an infusion. I do it every 3 weeks for at least 6 months, if not longer, 6 months to 2 years. And I've started it here in Minneapolis. My first infusion was 2 weeks ago, and my next one is next Monday. So I'll probably have something to say a week from Tuesday. I noticed a little bit of nausea the second day and third day, wasn't debilitating. A few other little odds and ends, but nothing huge. One thing I have noticed is that since my chemotherapy 2 years ago, I've had mild neuropathy in the balls of my feet and toes, and the Keytruda seems to have exacerbated that. You know, again, it's my personal observation or thinking or sensation or whatever. I looked it up, and it says it can do it while you're doing it in conjunction with chemotherapy, but it didn't say anything about after the fact. But I do notice that, and I will talk to Dr. Antanarakis about it next week and see what he has to say. It's not debilitating, but I do notice it. It's a little more annoying than it used to be. I thought it was going away, and all of a sudden it's kind of back, not with a vengeance, but it's back a little bit. Question I have, castrate resistance. So I have been off of Lupron for a year now. I'm on monotherapy darolutamide. My PSA has gone up to 1.5. It's gone up. I've had about 4 rises from 0.08, and now it's up to 1.5, which is good, which meets the threshold of where Dr. Antanarakis felt it would be good to do the Keytruda. Is the definition for castrate resistance rises in PSA even if you've been off of Lupron for a year and on darolutamide, or does it have anything to do with it? My T level is up to about 110 on the darolutamide. It's been rising a little bit. So I was just curious because in his notes he kind of indicated that I was castrate resistant now, and I've wondered about that, whether if I started back on Lupron at some date, whether it would work or not.
And I think the definition that I've read, Peter, of castrate resistance is that PSA rises while you are on Lupron. That while you have castrate levels of testosterone, your PSA is rising. That's the official old-fashioned definition before second generation blockers like darolutamide.
Right.
And so officially, I'm not sure you would be considered castrate resistant unless you went back on Lupron and then it went up.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but just looking at his notes and seeing that label made me scratch my head a little bit. But it's another question I'll bring up to him.
No, but I think you can extrapolate and say, well, a newer modern definition would be rise in PSA while you're blocking testosterone, right? That would be a revision.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, if I sit down with him instead of a PA next Monday, that's one of the questions for sure I'll bring up.
But I think you should.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to know what his definition of castrate. I would ask him just, what's your definition of castrate resistance?
Right. Good.
And this is John. I wonder too, why once we are castrate resistant by whatever definition, and because of that we end up on these various tertiary treatments, why do we always continue on ADT?
Well, I think, John, from what again, it's not based on, it's based on reading. It's based, for example, on that recent Nature paper where they looked at castrate resistant people and they did all that deep sequencing. And what they found was that the driver still was the testosterone, the androgen receptor. So I think, given that the overwhelming evidence that the driver, even in castrate resistance, is androgen receptor, I think that's the reason to do it.
Peter, this is Al.
This is Len.
Go ahead, Len.
Hold on, Al. Yeah, my understanding, John, is that when you're castrate resistant, it means that there are enough cancer cells that are not being inhibited by castrate levels of testosterone. However, that doesn't mean that all of your cancer cells are resistant or insensitive. There still may be some clones of sensitive prostate cancer cells, sensitive to testosterone. So that, my understanding is that is the reason why they keep you on drugs like Lupron even after you're castrate resistant.
I've read the same thing in several sources. Exact same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, uh-huh. Okay, thanks,
Okay.
guys.
So
Go ahead.
I'm above the castrate level now. I'm up to one.
Right.
So who knows? I will keep you informed of how this ride goes. So far, it's going well. No big changes. Still exercising and getting out there and feeling generally pretty good. But I think the drug is cumulative, and I'll let you know how it goes. Before I leave Minnesota, I'll probably have another PSMA scan, and it'll I think what they use there is the gallium-68
Right.
university, and I'll probably do that in October sometime.
Okay.
Peter?
So Peter, I just want to say that we have had other people do Keytruda pembrolizumab in this group. So there is some experience. It's not huge experience, but we have some experience in the group.
Did Carl you did Keytruda, right?
Yeah, but Carl did it in conjunction with another trial with some other drugs and so forth.
It was a triple therapy: actinium, Keytruda, and
Right.
enzalutamide.
Right.
Right.
I don't know. Can you hear me? I have a
Yes.
question for Peter. This is Bob. Are you MMR deficient or microsatellite unstable?
Both.
Okay.
I've got a Lynch syndrome gene, and I'm an MSI high.
So
Okay.
that would,
So I'm in the sweet spot for the drug.
right.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I am, but I'm just very early on this journey.
Mhm. So we'll find out how Peter
Yeah,
does.
keep in touch. Keep in touch. My email is peterk@ancan.org.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Peter and Keytruda?
Peter, this
If
is
not-
Al. This is an immunotherapy, correct?
Correct.
And so how does that relate to Provenge? You decided to do Keytruda and not Provenge, or you've already done Provenge?
No, I haven't done Provenge. I asked Dr. Antonarakis and Dr. Schultz was was open to the Provenge idea. I would have had to go back on Lupron to do it. I asked Dr. Antanarakis a week later, in mid-June, and about that, and he felt that Keytruda was the way to go. Weighing the two, he didn't think trying to do Provenge first would really help at all. He said he would have started Keytruda a year or 2 years ago. So,
Keytruda is also a much more accurate bullet, isn't it, in this case?
Hoping so. Hoping so.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're MSI high, if you have Lynch syndrome, it's a reason to do it. If you didn't, then he might have thought about Provenge.
Right.
Yeah. The genomic report I got on my tumors associated Keytruda to as a possible treatment, based on the biomarkers. So the only problem with that is I just found out today that Caris that they sent it to is out of network, and I got an EOB showing that I may owe 20 grand.
Oh no!
Oh my God!
Yeah. So
fight it.
Oh, I am.
You won't. If you weren't informed in advance, Bob, you're not responsible.
No, I know. I was informed in advance that the genetic testing, the spit test, was going to be out of network and it was going to be 250. The fact that they didn't inform me that I might be on the hook for 20 grand, I'm definitely going to be fighting this. This literally came in the mail this evening.
Okay, so a couple of things, Bob. First of all, the cash price is never the same. So most of these companies have a way reduced cash price. That's the first. The second thing is that Caris is not the best place to get tested either. There are issues with that. There are issues with the Caris test that we have found. Didn't something just come up where something didn't show on Caris? Guys, moderators, didn't we just have a situation where something didn't show up on Caris? Or am I thinking of 360? Maybe I'm thinking of who's the other one? Guardant 360. I think actually, scrub that. I think it's Guardant 360 that is the one to stay away from. The Caris is usually okay. So forget what I said. And moderators, can you help me on this?
I do not have. I can't.
I remembered a couple of weeks ago. I remember the discussion, but I can't remember the details.
Yeah. I think it's actually Guardant 360 is the one to stay away from, and not Caris, Bob. So forget what I said. But they will have a cash price, but hopefully you shouldn't have to pay that anyway.
No, yeah, definitely fighting that. And I really didn't have a choice. They just said they're going to send it out for testing. It's like, okay.
Yeah, but you do have a choice though, and this is good for everybody. You can, if you know they're going to send it out, you can ask them where to send it. Who is in network for you?
That I don't know. It's this was literally at the first appointment I had with my doctor. Is like, we're going to send this for genomic testing. It's like, okay.
Right.
This was, right at the beginning when I knew a lot less.
Okay.
Let's gonna move on. Jeff Preston, tell us what's up.
Last time when I talked to you sort of after the official meeting, we were talking about getting a PSMA scan before I start any radiation or ADT. And I was that day I had my latest PSA test. I'd gone from 3 months after the surgery from 0.21 to in June to 0.47. And then the most recent one is 0.41. So it didn't go up, which is what I was thinking would be the signal that, oh yeah, it's okay to get a PSMA PET now. So now I'm in a dilemma. What do? Do I push it and request one now when it may not be that discriminating, or wait for it to go up if it goes up to over 0.5, and then ask for it. And then what are my risks if I do wait that long?
So what would you do if it went up?
Well, if it went up, then I'd have a better chance that the PSMA PET would be more, more likely to find something if there was something, based on what I've read. Based on what I think you told me last week, or some people said last week.
Right. Any comments, Len?
Yeah, well, I can tell you just from my own experience, my PSA was rising at some point in the past, and it hit 0.5, about where you are. And I asked my oncologist, what do you think? Should I go back on ADT? This was before PSMA PET. And he said, well, I can tell you, I've had guys who have reached that level and then they would just plateau there. I said, well, for how long? And he said, some of them indefinitely. So I said, all right, let's go for a ride. And it was another year before my PSA started to take off. But that's just, a case report. I don't really know what the theory behind that is. I guess sometimes your cancer cells just become dormant and then they get reactivated due to some tumor microenvironment events. So bottom line, I wouldn't be too anxious to have the PSMA done now, but that's just my opinion.
What's Dr. E think? Is Dr. E pushing it?
Will now be recorded.
I don't know who Dr. E is.
Oh, he's not a, so what is, Jeff, what does your docs think?
Well, the guy who did my surgery, Dr. Mal, wanted me to talk to a radiologist, which I did. And now tomorrow I actually go and see one of two in my area that I'm going to choose between. And it'll be the first conversation I've had with any of them about my situation. I was just based on last week, where I was thinking that the next PSA would be at least up a little bit from the 0.47 and to hit the magic 0.5, and I'd feel comfortable doing the PSMA, whereas it came back and it didn't. So, I won't know till tomorrow to what the radiology oncologist says, or one of them that says.
But again, listening to Len, there's not much downside in waiting if the chances are it won't continue.
Yeah, well, I don't know if the chances are it won't continue. It's possible.
Right.
It's a good sign from my perspective that it didn't go, again double.
Right.
That's a good sign from my perspective. So I'd be inclined to wait, but I was listening for perspective here on this group, and then I'll listen to what my oncologist, the radiology guy, tells me tomorrow, and make a decision after that.
Okay.
I guess the radiologist will assume, unless you get a scan, I suppose the radiologist will say that the odds are overwhelmingly in favor of it being in the pelvis somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would suspect that, yeah. When all the scans that were done before when I was initially diagnosed, the bone scans and the MRI, well, the MRI was just of the prostate, but all the other scans that they gave me came up as nothing elsewhere in the body. So I would expect that's what they'll say.
So, Jeff, I think what I would say here, if it were me, is that I would probably be comfortable waiting. This is not going to get out of hand. And the more information we know, the better the plan can be drawn for follow-up radiation. And if, in fact, you plateau like Len did at this 0.41 level for a while, that's okay too. So, if the fear is, well, if I don't get it done, it's the disease is going to spread, highly unlikely, not impossible, but highly unlikely if you make a regular amount, or you made a fairly regular amount of testosterone of PSA. I mean, you were a low PSA producer. So, that usually tells us something, and that has to be worked into the equation. I mean, at 4 + 4, your PSA was only 5.7.
No. The PSA before, when the biopsy came back and showed 4 + 4, which subsequently has been refined to 4 + 3. By the way, I had Dr. Mal send the prostate to Sloan Kettering for another review of it to see if it indeed is a 4 + 3 now. So I'll get a confirmation it's a 7, not an 8, unlike the 2 initial biopsies. But it's a 7, and before I went in for surgery, it was up to about 18 PSA.
Okay, so you were 18. You were 18 before you started. So you make a regular amount of PSA, so you don't have to worry about that. I thought you were going to get a second opinion on your post-op pathology from Epstein.
I am. That's what I am. I couldn't come up with his name. That's I couldn't remember Sloan Kettering. So yeah, it was Epstein.
No, he's at Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins.
Sorry, it is Epstein. Sorry.
Okay. But you don't have that back yet, right?
No, it just went out this week.
Okay, so I mean, if your PSA was as high as 18, I would be comfortable monitoring it. Watch your PSA every month, and when your PSA gets up to the level you need it to be, that you can get a good reading on a PSMA scan, that's when I would do it. Now, there are other people, and John and Alan Babcock is one of them, who is willing to roll the dice at lower than 0.5. If it were me, I'd wait, only because we've seen people not get results. But I think it's up to you.
I'm pretty much okay with waiting, as long as I can get my PSMA tested every month. Now, is that something I could ask the oncology doc to order for me every month, and just ask them to do that on an ongoing basis? Or
yeah, they'll just put an order in for you. Just make sure that you get it from the same
the test
place.
Right.
Right.
place. Yeah. Now, I see that Alan Babcock's saying he's
Alan Babcock, right.
And Dr. Wong and Dr. Gainesman are saying, well, 0.21's high enough. 0.21 wasn't high enough in the tests. So yeah, you can do it at 0.21, but there are people at that low level that don't get a result. Is there anybody on the call right now who tried at a lower level and didn't get a result? Jack Baruch.
No, I got a result at 0.21. I got a result.
That's Jerry Pelfrey. Jack Baruch put his hand up. Jack, you're muted. You need to unmute first.
Rick,
no result at 0.26. And then the second PSMA scan, gallium, I had no result at 0.52. So I have no result times 2.
I think also, they're looking at SUV max. They're looking at uptake of the radioactive tracer. And if you have diffuse disease, there may not be one site that takes up enough to localize. However, if there's a intense localization, then it could pick it up at a much lower level. Right. But in general, it doesn't pick up very much below 0.5.
So, Alan, I mean, they're not wrong. It could pick it up, but they're not paying the bills either. So, and it's not their time to have to go through a PSMA and then fight again with your insurance 3 months later when you get up to above 0.5. So you can go, but don't come back crying about spilled milk. Well, we didn't see anything. What would you do? And we'll say, well, wait till you get to a 0.65. Well, they didn't say you should wait. Yeah, but we've heard it. So we can't give you the medical advice, but we can tell you what we've heard from other people. Jack, Dr. Jack is not unusual. At the same time, there are people like Jerry who have gotten a result. But if you really want to be comfortable that you're going to get a result, you really need to wait.
Okay. Jeff, anything else?
Nope, that's good. Thanks very much.
Okay. Mike Yancey.
Oh, Jeff, what do you think? What do you think you're going to do? We're not just going to. Let's not wait. Then we're going to wait till next week. You know, we'll be on
Right, we'll wait-
tenterhooks for the whole
well, we'll
week.
wait
What
till
are you going to do, Jeff?
Well,
Wait till he hears.
I'm gonna go see this radiology oncologist tomorrow, who is the one that's closest to me. I've never met him, and I'm trying to right now make a decision between the guy that I met in Asheville at the very outset of my journey here, when I was determining between radiation and surgery, and this other fellow, and they would both be doing, you know, the radiation after the surgery. And I'm trying to make a decision about who I'm most comfortable with, and then whoever that is, I'll have a conversation with them about it, and I won't be shy about telling where I am, and I'll listen to what their logic is for something more and make a decision.
Right.
Okay.
So Alan Babcock's asking, how much does a PSMA cost? Well, it is definitely covered by Medicare. Pre-Medicare, I think you would have to look at your policy, and even in Medicare, you're going to have to look at your policy. But you're going to have to look, and for the longest time, they were charging $3,200 for this test in UCLA and UCSF, and now they've started refunding that to some people because it was, in fact, they're getting it from Medicare. But
Medicare,
I think
Rick, Medicare approved $6,500 for it.
Uh-huh.
really,
I had mine
Is that
done in March.
Medicare Part B or Medicare Part A?
Well, whatever it was, the whole procedure was $6,500. My 20% was $1,346.
Right,
I
so
mean,
that sounds like Part B.
It's got to be
Yes.
Part B. Part A is hospital, right?
Right, so, right,
B,
so all I
doctor.
have is Part A. So it's gonna be Aetna. All right.
So
But I
whatever.
got a lot of crap, so I guess it was worth it.
Okay.
no, yeah, no, I'm. Thank you for bringing that up, Alan. I mean, you know, it is a factor, and in Stuart, in your case, that was because of the Medicare supplement that you have, I think. You know,
Right.
some
Well,
Medicare
it's
supplements.
20% however you do it. I have a high deductible, so I have to pay it. But that's the 20% that was allowed. Yes.
Right, but there are other Medicare plans, supplemental plans, where you may pay more, and
That's
for
true.
your monthly premium, and you may not pay as much as that for the test.
Right. Right. Okay. Any other questions about Medicare or payments or tests?
My last PSMA test, Medicare paid about $6,500, and my secondary, whatever the remainder was, they paid the copay, which was some around 1,000 or something.
Right. Okay.
And how many of those is there a limit to how many you can get?
I've had
Well, I mean, you know, that's a really good question. I mean, the answer is no, but they're not going to give you, they're not going to approve it if you have them too close together, and that's really the problem. I mean, if you go in and get one at 0.21 or 0.25, and then you go back at 0.5, you're going to have to argue with them. You know, they may say, no, you got to wait till 0.65, or they may give you a hard time. That's kind of why we like to say to people, you know, wait until you know you're going to get a result.
Yeah.
Right.
So even if the doctor orders it and the time frame isn't long enough, they can still refuse it.
They could refuse it.
Okay.
Another thing to consider is waiting until you think it's going to change your treatment that you're currently on. If you don't think it's going to change it, it may not be worth doing it.
Well, I'm not on anything at this point. I mean, I'm entering the next phase, which would be ADT and you know.
Right. So if it would affect your treatment protocol, then it would be necessary. But if it's not and just informational, then would be.
If if they found that there were metastases somewhere else in my body at the time, I would assume that would have changed the treatment protocol.
Right. Correct.
Yeah, and that's my concern, is that there's something more going on.
And I think, I think you're just, but they're not, but the chances are that unless your PSA is a little higher, you may not see it.
Yeah, okay, cool. I'm good, thanks.
Okay, Mike Yancey, tell us what's going on. Is Mike with us? Mike, you're there. You're muted. I saw you a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I see him there, but he's muted and his screen isn't on, so maybe he stepped away.
I will keep him on hold and let's move on. Alan, you had something to say. Alan is also muted. ALLEN. I don't know his last name.
Well, we've got an Alan Babcock and Alan Moskowitz.
No, it's not Alan. ALLEN.
No, I didn't ask for help. I mean, I asked for time.
Oh, you did? Okay. So take it.
I did not ask for time, although
No, you didn't.
Now I'm thinking.
No, I know you didn't. Alan, the other Alan did. So, but he's not answering either. So we'll move on. Carl, tell us what's up.
Okay. Wow, I moved up.
You moved up the list. Yes.
Latest update is that 10 days ago, I had my treatment number 8 for my combo Jevtana and carboplatin. After a discussion with my oncologist and his review of the scan results, which indicated that there was no progression of my disease from the previous scan, so we decided to continue to move on with the chemo combo. I'm having my next one on August 25th. In the meantime, a couple of updates. I have switched also in consultation with my oncologist from prednisone to dexamethasone. He believes that that could have a more beneficial effect on the PSA, of lowering the PSA than the prednisone. I haven't had any, I've been on it also about a week or so. I haven't noticed any difference at all between the two. Talking about liquid biopsy, on Friday, I had a nurse come to my home and take blood work for, of all things, the Guardant 360. So hopefully, I mean, they said it takes a week to get the results, and we'll see how that affects my my treatments going forward. I am having a consult with radiation oncologist at the Rutgers, and also at the suggestion of the oncologist, because I have at least one spot on my back that when my oncologist was pressing on my back and I said, oh, you really found this really hard spot. He said, time to have a consult with the oncologist. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I am meeting with Dr. Beltran in Boston at Dana-Farber, and that's on August 24th, the day before my next chemo treatment. That's how it turns out. Try to get a telemed appointment, and I've been really seeing a lot of pushback lately, even from places that I have had telemed appointments in the past, like Dr. Munster out in San Francisco. They now refuse to, they said, well, you got to come to California to meet with the doctor. I said, all I have is a quick question, but, and that's not the only one. And also, again, Dana-Farber, because I had not been there before, I hadn't spoken to the doctor before, I have to go in person, and I think it should be worthwhile for the trip. And also for everyone's information, I did reach out to the Hope Lodge, which I think has been mentioned here before. That's the American Cancer Society has several locations in different parts of the country where a cancer patient can obtain residence, for lack of a better word, or a room. And it's not easy to get. You have to have at least 3 consecutive days of treatment at that particular location in order for them to house you. They also include a spouse or second person. So, but I called American Red Cross, not American Cancer Society directly, and they said to me that, okay, you're going to be in Boston. We do have an arrangement with the Cambria Hotel. I've heard of it before, but it does come very highly rated, actually. And they said we have an arrangement with them. And because my appointment, Dr. Beltran, is 7:15 a.m., and I'm a 5.5-hour drive from central New Jersey, so I would have to arrive, and I will be arriving the day before. So they've arranged for a room and for parking, which runs about $350, and they are covering the cost for that.
So Carl, what are you going to add? What is Dr. Beltran going to add for your team?
Well, you know, it is going to be another second opinion. I've been following her. There's been a lot of information on this group about that doctor. She is highly regarded. And also one of the trials that she is doing is a trial that Dr. Mark Stein had actually, he personally called me and said to me, you know, we've got this trial which is having tremendous results, and I would recommend that you consider going onto this particular trial. And Dr. Beltran is also one of the centers at Dana-Farber who has that same trial. So I'll have a second opinion about that particular trial.
What's the trial, Carl?
The trial is using Regeneron 5678. It's a BITE trial, and he's combining it with Libtayo, L-I-B-T-A-Y-O.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes, that's gotten some very positive press lately.
Right. So
is that not is there no trial site available in the tri-state?
Oh yes. Well, that's Dr. Stein at Columbia. So
why wouldn't you go there?
Oh no, I would. If that was my decision, my ultimate decision, it would definitely go be at Columbia. I've been at Columbia numerous times before. So
we've been following. I mean, we've been following this 5678 since 2019 when I met with Len Sierra in Utah. I remember. And, you know, we think it's very positive. Now, they're combining it with this, what's it called? Libtayo, is it, or something?
Libtayo, also called Cemiplimab.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. And, you know, that part we weren't so familiar with at the time. I don't think they were talking about combining it with Libtayo, but yeah, I mean, we like the idea that REGN, somebody said, and I think this is you, Carl, I seem to recall that you talked to Charles Drake, or maybe it was Stein, and they said, and we heard that Drake thought that 5678 was the best thing going.
Good memory. I was about to start the Regeneron 5678 trial when I got, like a better word, diverted to another trial with Tagawa.
So Carl, let me ask another question. How are you feeling with all those chemo, eight rounds?
You know, pretty well. I mean, now that I finished round eight has become more difficult, at least for a week. The prior treatments, 3 to 4 days, and then I was feeling fine. This last one, it lasted a week, and some nausea, but you know, I have the pills for that, and they're definitely more fatigue. There were two times in the first week that I slept at least 10 hours straight, and I don't recall ever having slept 10 hours straight in a day. So, but otherwise, you know, it basically, I don't want to say it goes away, but it really minimizes after that first week.
How's your PSA doing, Carl?
The PSA, I will find out before the next treatment, but the PSA had gone slightly up instead of it accelerating so much, it went from 18 to 41, and then the next one was 42.2. So it's
Okay,
like
so
it had
it's
slowed
it
down.
seems to have stabilized. So the PSA
Stable.
seems to have stabilized. Now, just one question from what you were saying before. What type of oncologist are they sending you to for this pain in your back?
Radiation oncologist.
Oh, okay. So you're going to see a rad onc for in case
Spot
there's
radiation.
anything. Right. And is there
It's
anything?
a consult.
Right. Is there anything showing? Did you just do another PSMA or something? Can we see anything?
The PSMA scan I had a while back did show in the middle on the left side of the back, and that's exactly where I'm having that particular pain. So we'll
But
see what
wouldn't
he
you
has
have
to
to
say.
start that? I mean, you're going to have to do a scan for them to do anything. So you've got to get a PSMA scan in the works.
Right.
Right.
So look,
I mean, there's one other. I've been in talks or discussions with Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and what I really am intrigued about this trial, and this was as recommended by Dr. Susan Dumchek in Philly, who is the one of the gurus for mostly women who are BRCA2 positive.
so Carl,
Yeah. Tell us what the trial is, Carl. Just tell us what the. What are you intrigued about at Hopkins?
Well, it's using a PARP inhibitor, and I said, well, I've already had one. Would that preclude me from having it? And they said no, because it's a dose escalation drug.
Let me. How are they planning to continue your Jeftana?
Yes, well, that's correct. Right now, we're continuing with the chemo, probably another 2, and then we'll have updated scans again to see where I'm at.
So why not just continue, and when you need it, you'll deal with these trials?
Absolutely, no question.
Instead of going all over the place when you're still being treated with a therapy that might be working.
No, I don't.
I mean, what are they going to tell you?
Disagree with you with your comment, and that's me. I like to do a lot of. It keeps, for lack of a better word, it keeps my mind going. It keeps
I understand that, but as you saw in my little preamble, next week it could be entirely different. Right? In 2 months it could be
I shouldn't be
different.
looking at something.
When you need it, it could be different. And anyway, I think we have to move on.
We do, but let me just say, I think the point is this, Carl. This science moves exceptionally quickly. We know that sometimes chemo takes a while to work. We've now seen the chemo possibly start to work for you. It may do. Now, if the chemo next time around does work, then all of this gets put on hold. We know where the trials are. Hopefully those trials will be open. But, we got some success finally. I mean, the chemo worked to begin with. It was great. It pushed everything down from 60 down. Then it popped back up to 40. Now it's plateauing. So just saying, but a leopard doesn't change its spots, right?
Rick, Carl, you've heard us. You're going to be our source of information about every trial, period.
The ones which I think are hopeful for me.
Right. Okay. We'll be hearing more about your meetings with these people, I'm sure. So, okay. Mike Yancey. Mike, you're there. We can see you. How are things?
Well, basically had my first Pluvicto on Tuesday, and we had lots of energy, got lots of things done. Since then, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, had a little bit of let's say, body pain, a little bit of a headache, but was still able to get out and do some work, heavy work in the afternoon. And then Sunday, I was pretty tired, slept off and on quite a bit. Today, I'm pretty much to normal. So that's kind of the effects that I've experienced.
Uh-huh. And so the side effects are mostly fatigue.
Fatigue and a little bit of body pain, like I said, for several days, but that seems to have dissipated this morning. The good thing is that because of significant pain I had before I started this treatment, I had to quit walking about 6 weeks ago or so because my right hip was so bad. And I've been able to start walking again, walking 2, 3.5 miles a day. So it's really helped in keeping the bone pain away, keeping the hip working well. The only thing I can't do because they're afraid I'm going to break a bone is I can't lift any weights right now yet. So.
Okay. Any questions for Mike?
What was your PSA when you started the Pluvicto last week, Mike?
It was 0.9, but one thing we always have to keep in mind per Dr. E is I don't put out much PSA for the amount of cancer I've got in my body. So that's not a good biomarker for me.
Right. So when was your last PSMA scan?
That was in July, just when we thought we were going to be able to get it July 7th, I think it was.
Okay. So that's close enough for government work for a baseline. I mean, I'm looking at where we have a baseline to measure against. That's all.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that will be interesting to see how you feel. I mean, given that your PSA is low, it's going to be how you feel that's going to tell you whether it's working and the scans.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I'm feeling pretty good, so I feel like even this quickly, we maybe had some benefit of it, and
That's
so
great.
I think over the long haul it'll even get better.
Terrific. Questions for Mike?
Well, you have a question for Mike, I think, because this hip pain Pluvicto sounds a little familiar, maybe, right?
Well, it does and it doesn't. I think we'll find out. I mean, I have hip pain, but it was real. But my hip pain is more really came on after walking 7 miles and 8 miles a day for a week. And then it hasn't abated. So I'm not so sure what it's from. So I'm thinking it's really a hip issue, not a cancer issue. But we'll see.
Get an X-ray.
Right. Well, that's next. I have an appointment with an orthopod. Okay, Mike, thank you. Jimmy, tell me what you're doing with those bands while we're watching you. You got to give us an explanation of what.
I'm stretching my neck. I've had neck stiffness for out of nowhere for the last few months, and it mostly comes and goes, but it seems to come more strongly when I have one of these fever episodes, and that's what I'm here to talk about.
So did you have one?
Yeah, I was telling Rick, I contacted him. I said, I don't know if I want to talk about this to the group, since it's not precisely prostate cancer related, but certainly not only is it peripherally related, most likely, but also the process I'm going through might be familiar, and somebody might be helped by what I've been through a little bit. So as some of you know, I'm a musician, and I've had 4 of these bouts of high fever lasting about 72 hours. Only the first 6 hours or so, 8 hours, it rises quickly out of nowhere to about 104 or a little bit higher, and then dissipates to about 102, 101 for the next 2 or 3 days, and then goes away completely. That was the pattern. And of course, the speculation was that it rose from the infection from the artificial urinary and sphincter insertion, which was in March of 21. The first of one of these episodes was in April 21, and then I had 3 more over the course of the next year. And now I've had 2 more since I got back from my trip to Italy in May or in early June. But both of them, the fever has been not as strong. So I made, had standing orders for a lot of tests because the test they gave me before, it was agreed by all the doctors that if I wasn't tested when I was symptomatic, it would be hard for them to use it as a diagnostic tool. They want the fever to be, the threshold is like 100.4 or higher. And the fever I had a month ago was not that high. So I decided, I didn't even know it then. I decided not to get them because I instinctively thought they might not be high enough. And then I found out about that threshold, which my PCP didn't tell me till afterward, but that's okay. This time, unluckily enough, I had a show. Last time I had one of these fevers, the time before last, I also had a show and I had to cancel the show. And this time I was determined if it wasn't a severe fever, that I would follow through. So I followed through for the most part. We stopped a little bit early because I knew what I needed to do since the fever was 101 was to get home from downtown, have Nancy go with me, which she wanted to do. I didn't want her to do it, to Sibley Hospital and wait in the emergency room for a very long time, which is what you do nowadays when you go to an emergency room. So I went there with my my 101 fever, and they gave me CBC and they gave me urinalysis and they did blood cultures and the whole 9 yards. And I finally met with a doctor about 9 hours later. So I was in the hospital a long time. I don't know if it's no record-setting experience. When I had the first fever, I went to Hopkins and waited 17 hours. And when they came and took me in, I said, I've been waiting 17 hours. They must have thought I was a pretty agreeable guy because they said, it's not a record. And I said, well, thank God for that. Yeah, it's nice. But anyway, at the end, they told me they couldn't find anything. And then I kept thinking it would be the last time. But after I had 4 of them in a year, I knew that I had to act because I was starting to have this kind of cognitive loss that reminded me very much of Lupron brain, which a lot of you guys know about. And yet I am not on Lupron anymore. So this one is really pronounced, even though I didn't feel as bad as some of the other pains because I was performing while I was feverish. Even though the fever was only 100 or so, 101, I should say, 100.5. I was forgetting words to songs. I was forgetting chords. I was forgetting things I never forget. So it was a little bit unsettling. But anyway, I went there, waited all night. The doctor saw me. I had already seen an infectious disease doctor last month. I went to a hematologist. They explained away, I thought to my satisfaction, that my low lymphocytes were probably a result of delayed onset of neutropenia. Low lymphocytes can come, delayed onset from radiation, I should say, which I had in 2020. So that and my other counts are usually pretty good. They're a little bit lower this time. I don't think anything really stood out. But I have to hear back from my infectious disease doctor who had all the information. The thing that disturbs me is that on a couple of occasions I had accompanying these fevers, a lot of redness and swelling in my scrotal area and puffiness and redness on the top of my thighs on each side of my scrotum. And in this particular fever, even though the fever wasn't as high, that redness and that swelling was more pronounced than it had been. So I didn't tell the emergency room doctor after those 9 hours of waiting about this because I didn't look at myself and I didn't feel that it was any different than it was. But the next morning when I looked at myself, I was like, shit, I should have told him about this. What I did do is I took some photographs of my pelvic area there and kind of like, who's that New York politician that got in trouble for sending nude pictures of
Wiener.
Like Wiener, except that I wasn't trying to get a rise out of him that way. I thought he would be good information from to have because I had a picture of myself in a normal, what I consider normal, and then the way it was the morning that I got home, which is real bad. And then even by today, it was less severe. So that's not, the greatest thing that exists. So anyway, the thing I'm saying is that, oh, by the way, also, I got the last piece this morning. And I did not want to get up and go do it, but it was part of the picture was to get a scrotal ultrasound of the scrotal area. And I have to say that, I have to be funny, man, but, I had there's a young, attractive attendant. So I'm telling everybody that what did I do today? Well, I started the morning off with a half-hour ball massage by the attractive young therapist at the Johns Hopkins massage parlor. But that's no shit. And she was very nice, and we talked. And I told her I'm going to say that. She said, "You should say it. It's funny. I've never heard it before." So I did that. But the thing is, My point of saying all this, because the thing that's bothering me, of course, the most is always when I don't know what's going on. I always would say that not knowing what's going on is the worst thing in the world. Well, it's not. Having pancreatic cancer worse than that, among many, many other things. But it is unsettling. And so my thing is, I questioned the urologic surgeon that inserted that artificial urinary sphincter on a couple of occasions. And his point of view was that the fever episodes that I had in that profile did not fit side effect profile of the AUS insertion. And that was pretty much all that he had to say about it. And even when I asked him twice and kind of pushed him, he said, basically, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Now, my attitude is not so much that I think that he doesn't care, but I realize that for all of us, we have this ongoing thing that occasionally we have to weigh carefully how much trust we put in doctors versus possibly knowing or at least thinking that maybe they just sometimes want to hit home runs and they don't want to deal with difficult or mysterious cases, and they just pass those on to other doctors. He didn't do that. He just kind of washed his hands of me a little bit. And not really, but he said he didn't have any answers. And so the other doctors that I've seen, and I've seen a number of them now, all pretty much say the same thing. A, I'm not sure I believe him. And B, you need to get these tests when you're symptomatic for us to be able to see more. Well, I've taken the steps of kind of moving away from him. I have a second opinion with another urologist coming up September. These days you make an appointment and they, with a straight face, they say, yes, Mr. Greenfield, we'll get you in first available. That's March of 2029. Should you put you down for that? And I told this to the infectious disease doctor, who I like very much. And he actually told me a joke. A doctor has never told me a joke. And he says, yes, I have to tell you this. This is on a telemedicine call. Why is the doctor telling me a joke? But he thinks I appreciate it. He said, I think you all appreciate it too. He said, it was when he heard back in the 80s when Reagan was president, there was a Russian that wanted to get a car. And back then, even if you had money, you had to wait a long time to buy a car. You may even get a car delivered in 10 years or so. So he asked the dealer to buy a car, and the car dealer said, I'm sorry, it's a 10-year wait on that car. And he says, no problem, morning or afternoon. And the car dealer says, it's 10 years from now. What difference does it make? And he said, I have a plumber coming in the morning. I thought that was a pretty good joke. But he said, of course, we understand. Also, by the way, Carl Foreman, he also said, I was told that I had to be physically in Maryland for the telemedicine appointment, even though I live about a half mile from the Maryland border. And I had to deliver an address. And I was thinking, I mean, I used to break the law with, pretty much regularity. And I thought, who's going to know exactly? I mean, there's big brothers out there, but I said, well, I'll go and see my friend in Bethesda and we'll have breakfast. And that's what I did. But when I talked to the doctor, and I don't want to say his name, I don't want to get him in trouble. He said, you didn't have to, you could have said anything. You could have driven your car up to the coffee shop across the border in Tacoma Park, which is a 1-minute drive from your house, and had the conversation from there. Or to tell you the truth, you could have not paid any attention to it. So I think it can be different for different situations, but that's what I was told. Anyway, I'm tired of putting my brain on the Barbie.
So Jimmy,
when I was a young man, I did it all the time, and I don't want to do it voluntarily.
So Jimmy, did they do any blood cultures? Do they look for bacteria?
Yes, blood cultures are on the way. It's the last thing that hasn't come back. Everything else has come back, but that takes a little bit longer. And that's the thing that my brother, the retired doctor, said that they needed to make sure they got, because the first time round of tests that they gave me, they never gave me that. And he said, why in the world are they not giving you that? So again, the balance between advocating for yourself and putting your trust in doctors only to find out later that they dropped the ball on something or other is tough for us. I know. So I've talked enough. That's my situation.
Okay. So let's hope, I mean, I'd like to see the blood culture show something, which means then they could then there'd be something to hang their hat on.
Yeah, it would be antibiotics or whatever they do.
Right.
The dark places I go to in my mind involve everything I can find on the internet, which is testicular cancer and several other things, but I don't need to talk about that because we all know what happens when we consult the doctor.
Jimmy, I think Dr. Bob has something he'd like to say here. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, in the groin area, when you had like those red splotches areas, I had that when I was severely neutropenic after my first chemo, and it's Candida. Nystatin powder cleared it up in about 4 days.
Mm.
So if
I
that ever
thank you,
happens
but I
again.
think I should be more specific, Bob, about that. And I'm very interested in what you have to say. This, I'm not going to screen share a picture of this. I have to emphasize that it's the swelling is in the penis, it's in the testicles, and it's in the top of the thighs surrounding, at the very top of the thighs where the groin meets. And the redness is all around that area and that puffiness too.
Yeah,
Does that still fit what you had?
I mean, mine wasn't into the testicles and all, but mine was, yeah, where the legs meet the groin and even up into my waistband. And I sent pictures to friends who are dermatologists, and they're like 99.9, that's Candida, and they said, the powder will clear it up, and it did.
What kind of powder?
Nystatin.
Yeah, it's prescription, but it cleared it up in just a few days. So if it ever happens again.
Would you put that in the chat window, please, Bob?
Sure.
When I had my
green too.
Yeah, when I had my artificial urinary sphincter inserted, they did give me some dexamethasone, something or other combination to put on it, and suggested that I use, some kind of powder to keep it dry if I found it uncomfortable, which I didn't have to do really. But this is different. This is, so I don't know.
I mean, but Jimmy, the other thing is maybe if you saw a dermatologist, that picture could be useful.
I got all my pictures, and, I'll keep searching. I mean, I got all these doctors, and I don't know how much longer I want to go on getting these fevers. It's starting to make me a little frustrated.
But they're coming more frequently.
More frequently, but less severely. That's the thing I don't understand any of it, but that's just the way it is right now.
Well, I mean, at least you got a hook, which means you got your blood test and you got while you were having the fever. And
yes, while I was having the fever. And with any luck, they'll send me for another scrotal ultrasound to the same person.
She's probably thinking, gee, I'd like to see him again too.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but there's nothing. I want you to move on just because I'll have more information later. That's just
great. Okay.
I would say something because it was good to get it off my chest.
Well, I'll talk to you offline about this. Okay.
All right,
take care. David Muslin.
Yes, sir. So here's what's up.
I think, David, you're on twice, so we've got to get rid of you.
I'm going to dismiss one.
Yeah, you dismissed the right one. Go ahead, try again now.
Thank you. So about a month ago, my nipples started getting sore, and then my whole breast started getting sore. And I reached out to Rick and reached out to Shmulowitz, and he says it's absolutely the side effect of darolutamide. So, and so my breasts are enlarged. They were enlarged to begin with. I've always had large breasts, but now they're even bigger. And it's so I don't know what to really do about it. If I should just live with it, or it's I think it's gynecomastia is the right way to say it, right?
Right.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody else has had experienced this. I'm just a little curious as to what.
So you have been you've been given the same suggestion by two different sources, right?
Yep. But
okay, so we won't tell them what it is. We'll see if anyone else comes up with it. Okay.
Well, I mean, there's surgery.
And there's radiation.
Don't walk next to a construction site with a T-shirt on. Is that the instructions?
Very funny.
So we've got surgery. We've got a radiation from Dr. John. Anybody else have anything they want to say?
David, are you on Lupron or are you on monotherapy?
Monotherapy, darolutamide.
Oh, well, if you go on Lupron, that'll probably take care of it. But the other thing is it's escaping me right now, but there's an estrogen blocker that you would also, huh?
Tamoxifen.
Tamoxifen, I
Yeah,
took it.
tamoxifen, right.
I took it.
Who said
It helped.
that?
Who said that?
I said it. Jimmy
Jimmy.
said it. I took tamoxifen when I was getting some enlargement and some sensitivity.
And did it
Did it
work?
work?
Yes, it did.
How long did you take it for, Jimmy?
Oh, several months. And then, fortunately, it backed off enough, and I was, kind of getting toward the end of my Lupron phase. And so I stopped, and nothing seemed to come back after it. But to this day, I still have a little bit of, I got a pair, I try to keep them more as fit as I can so they're not, they don't fall. But, I think it did help me, really, it did.
So does anybody, should we share with them, David, what Dr. Schmulowitz and I suggested to you? And Dr. John?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Radiation. But
Yeah.
you hear radiation and do it on your boobs. It's kind of scary. I really don't understand, what kind of side effects from radiation, what it does. Maybe somebody can tell me a little bit more.
Well, I think it's quite a low dose, but I think it has to be done very early, if not before. I'm not sure.
That's what I hear.
This is Joe. Before I started my radiation therapy last year, I had my breast radiated. It was 3 short sessions.
Any side effects?
Wouldn't have known the difference.
Yeah, and it just reduced the size of your breast, basically, is what it did?
It was preventative.
Preventative.
It kills the fat cells in your breast tissue, so you're less likely to get gynecomastia.
Got it. But he did that on the preventative basis beforehand.
Yeah.
Prevent it from happening. So I'm already there.
I'm not sure that's going to help you then.
Right.
Well, I would say that if Dr. Schmulowitz thinks you should give it a try, I'd give it a try and see.
Yeah.
If it does.
So I actually sent him back an email or a whatever it's called, and he came back, asking a bunch of questions, really didn't understand, and he doesn't know a lot about the radiation. He said, I just know some people have done it, and so I need to respond to his email.
I mean, it's pretty common, and it is usually done earlier, but it's also done at the time. I've seen it done at the time when people have issues.
Yeah.
And it does seem to help. And it can be 3 shots, it can be 1 shot. It all depends who's giving it. And I've actually asked cardiologists about it as to whether it's safe or not. They feel it is safe. You could ask the oncocardiologist at Chicago just to verify.
Yep.
And what I would say, because it's really the least intrusive, I would try it. And if it doesn't work, the backup for me would be the tamoxifen. But tamoxifen can have some side effects.
Yeah.
I mean, the women hate tamoxifen as much as we hate Lupron. They hate Lupron too, by the way.
Right.
But I think that it's going to have a lot less of a systemic effect than the tamoxifen will.
Yep. Okay.
David, this is Al. I had big boobs too, and ultimately I went to a doc that does transition surgery for women that want to become men and want to have their boobs removed. I had them remove my boobs, and there was a month of recovery, but since then it's been great. I have no more issues. No more worry about taking my shirt off at the beach, none of that kind of stuff.
Right.
At this point, I wish I'd done it sooner. So that's another point of view.
Okay. All right, thanks, guys. I'll
Yeah,
do a little more
Seinfeld-
research, let you know what, where we end up.
Right. It'd be interesting.
Seinfeld fans will know about the Manzier solution. No Seinfeld
on.
fans here? Rick,
Go on.
you laughing.
I don't remember that well. I just remember shrinkage. But what was the Seinfeld solution then?
The Manzier, Kramer and George Costanza's father were going to get rich making Manzier. So brassieres for older men.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Like an athletic bra.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say this. It may not be that pertinent, David, but I know that tamoxifen has been very popular with bodybuilders for as long as there have been bodybuilders that take anabolic steroids, which I didn't do, but they take it all the time routinely because of the gynecomastia that's created by using anabolic steroids.
Thanks, Lee.
I don't know if that's a great endorsement or not, but
This is what you learn at the gym, huh?
oh, you learn all kinds of things. That's right.
So, okay, thanks, David. We will be interested to see what the situation is. Next, so the Geringers, tell us how things are going. I see Linda.
It's just me. Steve's in the hospital.
Yeah.
So tell us what's happening.
Well, so Steve's in the hospital. He went in and he's got sepsis. They've got it under control with the antibiotics. I'm not sure I'm like so burned out at the moment. From the hospital, he's going to go to rehab because he's been in and out of the hospital so much lately, and he is weak. He can barely stand, so he needs rehab. He's a couple of weeks past his second Pluvicto treatment, which, by the way, Herb, it's encouraging to hear you talk about your results, which is great. I'm just confused as to what all's going on, where he goes next, and if there's promise for him or not.
So where did the infection come from?
Well, he had a UTI previously. He was in the hospital a couple of weeks ago for that, and I don't really know exactly where it came from. Possibly some kidney situation, bladder situation. And I can't really intelligently talk to you.
Well,
so
okay.
What I'd really like to dig into a little bit here, Linda, and we sort of touched on it a little earlier, is what do you do when you don't have confidence in your doc, but it's not that easy to switch? Because this is the situation that you're faced with right now. And I just wanted to brainstorm with some of the people on here. I mean, we should, for Linda's benefit, I mean, one of the issues is that Steve had a whole bunch of symptoms. And Linda told her GU medical oncologist about it, who's young and fairly green. And he didn't follow up. She didn't even test for sepsis. I said she, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so the question that we're wrestling with, and Linda does have an appointment with Dr. E coming up.
No, I do not. It was this week.
Oh, well, you had one with Steve this week, but you've had to cancel that, and hopefully when Steve's strong enough, you'll go back there.
The urologist did give me a good suggestion, And that was, well, he offered two things. One was to get with the melanoma oncologist, who I think is pretty renowned. Doug Johnson is his name. And then let Schaefer be she's like the person spearheading the Pluvicto at Vanderbilt. So that was one suggestion. And then he came back to me a little bit later and he said, when you find yourself in this situation, as we have found ourselves 3 times now, reaching out with symptoms that have led Steve to the emergency room, I think with life-threatening causes or symptoms, he said, what about reaching out to the palliative care doctor? So I think that's a real good solution for the moment.
I think having a good palliative care doc on board when you've got all these issues on is a terrific solution. I definitely agree with that.
Right.
I mean, there are other alternatives for you locally. My hope is that you'll get Dr. Evstathiou to lead the charge and for her to work with a local person, because you do need a local person.
Rick,
I'm not sure I would be so comfortable with having my lead in Tennessee be the hematologist. Is it melanoma or is it hematology? It's melanoma, right?
He's melanoma.
Yeah.
Rick,
So I'm
can I
not
say
sure I would
something?
have it. This is
Melanoma. And he did see Johnson and he did get Keytruda with him.
I mean, here's my worry is if Schaefer is going to be sort of the person on the scene, right? And Dr. E is off in Houston. And yeah, they consult on therapies. And then he comes in with red hands and potential side effect. And she doesn't recognize it. Dr. E won't even know. And that worries me more than just having a backup. Because if she can't diagnose things like this and she's just blowing it off, I worry. So I'm not so sure I agree.
You tell Dr. E, Herb. I mean, you don't just tell Schaffer. You say, hey, Dr. E, by the way, I'm going to see Schaffer because I've got this symptom, that symptom, and the other symptom.
But this is something you want to look at. I mean, this symptom doesn't seem like something that can be easily described. I mean, so how hard would it be to change to one of the other GU oncs at Vanderbilt?
It wouldn't, but I don't really know that there's another recommendation that is any better.
I mean, there are 2 senior people there, 2 much more senior people.
I can ask about it, but Pinson today, when he was texting with me, said, you know, as far as he was concerned, it was Anderson or Schaefer or Johnson. I mean, those were his suggestions.
All right, I'm actually going to reach out to somebody else who used to be a major oncologist in Nashville, but now she's head of oncology at Roche. She moved to industry, but she's going to know the Nashville scene, and I'm going to ask her who she would see in Nashville.
Well, you know, the other thing is that we have a really good relationship with the chief oncologist there, with Dr. Park. And so we can definitely tie him into a conversation. But I think, as I said to Linda, that has to be really originated with you. But I'm willing to write him a note. But you know, my concern is that this is the second time this has happened with Dr. Scheffer.
Third
time.
It's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, I think you've got to get a change, and I think that they've got to keep her under closer supervision. And I think that there's an obligation on our part, in a certain sense, to let somebody like Ben Hopart know. And he's wonderful. He's such a good, kind guy, and compassionate. And he's a breast cancer doc. We know him because through the work we've done for male breast cancer. That's how we know him. But I think, I don't agree with all due respect to Dr. Penson, who's a urologist. I think that you need a GU med-onc. You need a good GU med-onc. And I, if it were me, I wouldn't want to leave that up to my melanoma doc, to my skin cancer doc. But so we have some options.
Was supposed to be a good prostate cancer center, but Penson made a comment like, if you want to go elsewhere, I'll be happy to get you in. Like he wasn't so sold on Vanderbilt.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, Vanderbilt isn't. There's nothing special about Vanderbilt. And, he's talking about, Penson's talking about MD Anderson. I would say don't bother with MD Anderson. Just go next door and go to Dr. F. Stathieu. She was 14 years at MD Anderson.
Right.
And you'll get a better response. Then it's a question of us finding somebody to work with locally. Now, Eleni may know somebody locally, or we go back to Dr. Park. I mean, does anybody else have ideas? I mean, there's a lot of people listening, and we've got also quite a few medical professionals on here today. I mean, any suggestions from any of you?
My experience is that doctors rarely talk to each other and consult with each other. I mean, it does happen, it can happen, but usually, in my experience, I had to be the intermediary, kind of going from one to the other and giving instructions and saying, this, my doctor in California says do this, and even though I got pushback, so I've got 3 medical oncologists, and they don't talk to each other, so I gotta keep running interference.
All right. Well, I mean, I agree, Peter. If they're at different places, they're not going to talk to each other. But I would say I would like to see somebody more capable in Nashville that you could see in person. And that's what I think is the issue. So if something arises, you got to get, and you want to show them something, something pops up, you get a fever, you're not going to want to, you get a fever in the middle of the night, Eleni's not going to be the one to deal with it.
Well, neither has Schaefer been. I mean, I just called 911. This is now the
Well,
third
that's not right. That's not right. I mean, I had a fever. I had a neutropenic fever from my chemo, early in my chemo. I called and I was in a hospital bed within 20 minutes. They didn't fool around. They just said, you have a fever, get here immediately.
And what Schaefer has told me is anything that you're in doubt, call 911, which I've done. I mean, that's
crazy.
I did.
That's not right. If she's your doc, there should be a system in place. And if that's the Vanderbilt system, that they don't have a backup when you have if you need help, then maybe Vanderbilt clearly isn't the place. Vanderbilt, I mean, I mean, for Jimmy, I mean, if we had some problem, we would head to Sibley, right? And then they would be on top of it.
We do go to Vanderbilt. We just go in an ambulance.
Right, but it shouldn't be necessary.
To go to the hospital?
No, it should be necessary to go to the hospital, but they should have arranged it. They should have said, you have to call 911 and then you go to the ER and then you're as if you're some stranger.
No, I'm fortunate because I can text Penson and he'll give them a heads up that we're on the way. So
But that's Benson, but that's not Schaefer.
No, I don't have connections with Schaefer.
So I don't know. Linda, I think I will do some more research for you because I did have this connection in Nashville. So, and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Linda, if you want me to get Dr. Park involved, I would recommend getting Dr. Park involved. If you want me to get Dr. Park involved, I'm happy to do so.
And what would that be for? To get another oncologist?
Well, it would be to have a sit down with him, explain to him all the issues, explain to him exactly what you've told us right here. Although I can refer him to this, I can refer him to listen to this session, and to come up with a better situation. Because if it's happening to you, it's happening to other people too.
Right. And I'm at least a tad savvy enough to, call.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I think that we need to address this,
I mean,
both for you, for Steve in particular, but clearly they're failing here.
no, and the thing is, Rick, if you tell Dr. Park this, and he's the kind of guy that you say he is, he's going to care. He's the head of the cancer center.
Exactly. Yeah.
He doesn't
will.
want patients to be treated this way.
He will.
Okay. But originally you said you wanted me to initiate it.
Well, I'll do it. I wanted to, the only reason I wanted to do that was because we wrote to him and said you were very happy with Dr. Schaefer, but that was before you had 3 failures. And now,
her as a person.
Right.
Okay, well, I will have to figure out a way to do it with Dr. Ben, but I'll do it with Dr. Ben. I'll tell him, and we'll see if we can arrange a meeting. In the meantime, Herb will see what he can find out about the others. But I think that that's a good place to start. And I think my ideal situation would be to find somebody in that group who's willing to work with Dr. E, but is a little more attentive. Where is Penson in Nashville now?
Yeah, he's at Vanderbilt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of bothers me that you got a guy there, a urologist, who's very well known, by the way, Benson.
Good guy.
He is a good guy, and he ain't coming up with a GU Medonc in his own hospital, and there's 4 or 5 of them listed.
That does say something.
I mean, that's a real concern to me. Real concern.
Yeah.
So, Rick, it's getting late. Linda will be in touch with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And good luck to both of you with your upcoming season.
Thank you.
Okay. Julian, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Good. Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to bring up some test results that I just got back. My PSA has been in undetectable for over a year now, and my hemoglobin had gone up under the previous medication. So but it's coming down. So I see Dr. E on Wednesday, so we'll see what our next steps are.
So what's your PSA?
It's undetectable.
And what's your hemoglobin?
It's at 6.0.
No, it can't be that low.
Hemoglobin A1C.
No, that's HbA1c. That's not hemoglobin. That means you have some kind of that's.
The hemoglobin HGB is 13.5.
Right, 13.5 is quite respectable for a cancer patient.
Yeah. Oh, but I like the results overall. They've been getting better since I've been on the Orgovix, and now I can't think of the other one.
Darolutamide.
Darolutamide. Thank you, Rick.
And what did you say? Did you say your A1C is high?
Yeah, but it's been coming down. It's 6.0. It was 6.4 before.
Okay, well, I don't know enough about A1C to
Well,
know.
it's something. Well, it's something. It's an inflammatory marker.
No, it's for
usually
diabetes.
No, diabetes.
No, but
I know it's
no,
for
it's
diabetes.
used for diabetes, but it's inflammation.
No, it's totally related to diabetes.
Totally?
Yeah. It's just level of sugar over time and it just 6.0 is fairly good. 6.4
Okay.
was a little pre-diabetic, but he's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's
That
good. This
correction.
is George. It's a glycosylated hemoglobin, so it measures
Yeah.
your blood sugar over a long period of time. So it kind of monitors your chronic levels of glucose as
It's
opposed
over
to
a
taking an
3 month,
instantaneous. Yeah,
it's a 3 month
yeah.
period.
We have enough
And if
physicians
you're
here.
over 5.6, you're pre-diabetic.
Mhm.
Right.
You're good.
I think so.
You're good. Okay.
Thank you.
Hey,
Glenn.
take Dr. E. Take some flowers in for Dr. E. She'll appreciate it. Just a little
Actually, I'm going
bunch.
to give her a bottle of olive oil.
Okay. Now,
Better
there
be
is one
Greek.
thing.
It better be Greek olive oil.
It is Greek olive oil.
Okay. Now, listen, guys, there is one thing I did want to mention very quickly, which is that Steve Saft is back in the hospital. He had a staph infection a week ago from today. It hit him really hard. They got him into the hospital quickly at UPenn. They had to put some filters in to stop the possibility of any clotting moving around his body. He's on intravenous antibiotics. Bottom line is he's weak, but he's doing way, way better. I've spoken to him, Herb's spoken to him. I don't know if anybody else has, but he's hoping to get out pretty quickly. And he sounds pretty upbeat, but I just wanted to let everybody know, if you want to get hold of him, send Herb or me an email, rd@ancan.org or herb@ancan, and we'll give you his phone number, and you know, I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you.
Yes.
So I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay. Glenn, are you there?
Yeah. I was just gonna give a quick update here. I was diagnosed in the spring with high risk prostate. I had PSA 8 or 7 then, Gleason score of 9. Now I also got genetic testing. I had a PALB2 mutation identified.
Mm-hmm.
Working with Dr. Antonarakis at U of Minnesota. I had a PSMA scan, and they found a tiny spot on my lumbar vertebrae. That's all the lead up to this. I'm taking Lupron and abiraterone. My PSA is now down to 0.07. In June, I had HDR brachy radiation treatment, and then in July, I got 20 treatments of external beam radiation. So I'm done with radiation now, and that's kind of the main thing I was noting, is that I've gotten through the thick of the treatment, the first round of treatment here, and I'm in a good place. And I appreciate listening to you guys and hearing how you guys are doing, and just want to let you know that I'm doing pretty well here. Thank you.
Any questions for Glenn? I mean, obviously you've got a good doc taking care of you, so
Yeah.
that's the key.
So one of the issues, Glenn, that I know concerns your wife is this PLB2 mutation.
Right.
And I've talked to her about it. At this point in time, and I may be wrong, but some of the docs on here will correct me, or Herb, we don't see a PALB2 mutation responding that well to a PARP inhibitor. Now, it's definitely in the pathway, and in theory, it ought to have an impact. But I don't know that we've ever really seen it have an impact. And I think that probably Dr. Antonucci is more aware, Dr. Antonarakis is more aware of that than any of us. But, you know, he had mentioned, I think, to you that you could be a candidate for a PARP inhibitor, but I'm not really sure where that comes from. Anybody have any thoughts on PALB2 and PARP inhibitors?
Well, one thing Dr. A did tell us was that the mutation makes the cancer cells more susceptible to the PARP inhibitors. I don't know if I understand that exactly, but it says it's. He was saying that if the PARP inhibitor engages, then it's got a pretty good advantage to knock it out.
Right. I mean, there's the concept is called synthetic lethality, and it's based on the fact that your mutation is in a DNA repair pathway.
Yeah.
So when DNA gets damaged, this pathway is not effective. And then by inhibiting PARP, you inhibit a separate DNA repair pathway. And then presumably it will increase the chance of lethality. However, most PARP inhibitors and I haven't seen any solid data about PALB2 and efficacy, but there is the possibility.
Yeah. Well, I was also, when I started doing some research on this, I saw one projection that there's like $3 billion being invested in a whole raft of these PARP inhibitors, and I don't know exactly what that means. It sounds like there's like 20 of them in the pipeline. Implied to me that there's some serious study going on behind this, and hopefully some serious advances before too long.
For sure.
Well, I think the issue, Glenn, is that yes, we know that PARP inhibitors can be effective if you have certain mutations, and yes, there is money being channeled into doing a lot of tests with PARP inhibitors. But all that said, what we haven't seen, we've seen the PARP inhibitors have a very positive impact if you have a mutation in BRCA1 or a mutation in BRCA2. We've maybe seen it with ATM, but in the further down the pathway of BRCA2, like with PALB2, which is sort of similar, we haven't seen it yet. And I mean, I'm just Len or maybe Carlos. Do one of you want to say anything about PALB2 being lower down the pathway?
Well, you know, Rick, in that PROfound study, there was a phase 3 study that got olaparib approved. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can anybody? Oh, I'm sorry.
We can hear you, Len.
Yeah. So remember, there was a cohort B, and I don't want to get too complicated here, but bottom line is that there was a whole basket of these homologous recombination repair deficient genes. PALB2 was one of them. And none of them really showed any efficacy with olaparib. So, or I should say olaparib didn't show any efficacy in those mutations. The only ones that it showed efficacy with are BRCA1 and 2, and arguably pretty weak effectiveness with ATM. So, you know, the FDA approved a whole basket of mutations, but they really shouldn't have, because only the BRCA1 and BRCA2 were responding to olaparib.
And I think even more recent data confirm that, Len.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think what we're saying is that when you speak to Dr. Antanarakis, you've got to say to him, you know, what makes you think that PALB2 might respond, because he may be aware of he may be aware of research we don't know about.
Okay.
And that would be helpful for us. But right now, the research that we do have doesn't really support that that the PARP inhibitor will do much for PALB2.
Okay. All right, that's a good question to have in hand. I'll be
Right.
asking him.
We'll be eager to hear what he says when you join us again.
Yeah, I'll see him early October, so it's going to be a little while.
Okay. Okay.
And we're glad that
Things
this is
look good.
working. How's your head doing, Glenn?
Most of the time I'm okay. There are times when I just can't cope with simple things, and it just kind of sporadic. I don't really know how to change it, but I think
Well,
I think the drugs I need are part of the equation, and I can't do without them. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, there's no question that the ADT is having an impact. We've got two psychiatrists on this call right now, and certainly one of them has long experience with ADT. And, I think that either Dr. John or Dr. Jack, without taking too much time, can you give, are you on any medication at all, Glenn?
Lupron and abiraterone, and no, I'm not taking any antidepressants. I did talk with a oncology psychologist at U of Minnesota, and it was fairly brief though, and mostly he was talking about ways of distracting myself from the things that start bugging me. So wasn't
Dr.
anything.
John, you have your microphone on. Can you give any suggestions or words of advice to Glenn?
I might be worth a consultation. Call me and we can talk about it, or call a local therapist or psychiatrist. And just because it's due to Lupron doesn't mean it's untreatable.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I'll send you, Glenn. I'll make sure that I send you Dr. John's number. And Jack, did you want to add anything to that? You're muted, Jack.
I haven't had much experience dealing with people who are depressed associated with Lupron or any of the other secondary drugs. So most of the work I've done with patients have been without the complexity of ADT.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Glenn, we'll be waiting for updates.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Bob, tell us what's up.
Okay. Just one thing for Glenn, for what it's worth, I've found CBD has helped tone things down for me. But in any case, today I had my third round of chemo. And this time the Dr. Haas, came in along with the nurse practitioner. And she started pulling out all kinds of possibilities for the future. Guardian liquid biopsy, starting immunotherapy after the chemo is done. She even was talking about bipolar androgen therapy, and somewhere down the line, if things don't work out, sending me down to Hopkins to do that. So it's like all these, things sort of out of the blue. The chemo went fine. I do have some early signs of peripheral neuropathy, and that's just after 2 rounds. I don't know if anyone's had that or what they've used. She suggested vitamin B6, 100 milligrams 3 times a day, to try that. I don't know if anyone else has
Carlos,
some other.
you had something to add to that?
Yeah.
You're
You're muted.
So whilst Carlos
Yeah.
is turning on his mic, let me just tell you that B6 has been great for me with my neuropathy, and I'm only taking one a day, Bob. And I know that B6, my suggestion to take B6 came from Peter Kafka. So I
Yeah.
know Peter Kafka has used B6, and
Carl. So
it's
Carlos said,
relatively, it's, we'll go to him as soon as I finished, Herb.
okay.
It's relatively mild. It's easy to get. It's something that you can try. It doesn't work right away. You've got to take it for a little bit. And so try going down to your CVS or Walmart and getting some B6. Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, I had the same issue with my Taxol after my second round, and by my fourth round, I was having a lot of neuropathy. 6 years out, I still have some in the balls of my feet, but my consultation with the neurologist led me to pursue 100 milligrams of B6 once a day. Additional amounts, he said, would not do me any good. So it's just a long-term thing, and I still take it, and I hope that it's improved me. But when I read about this 6 years ago, they weren't giving it anymore. They're actually pre-treating people with that type of prophylactic medications. So hopefully oncologists are getting a little more in tune to the patient rather than we just know how to treat it. So don't talk to me about the side effects because that your PCP is supposed to take care of that.
Bob, do you have it in your hands or your feet?
Fingertips, for the most part.
Try a basin of ice water and just sit while you're getting your infusions. Keep your hands in ice water or your feet in ice water too.
Oh, I've been doing that. I've done that from starting with day one.
Okay, good. Keep doing it.
Yeah. All right. So maybe I'll try the B6 a couple times a day, 100 milligrams, and I mean, just day in, day out until I'm done chemo or until maybe things get better. I guess play it by ear.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring a cooler with you with ice cubes and stuff so you can keep the water cold.
Oh yeah, they have loads of ice, and I got ice shoes to wear for my feet. So
good.
Okay.
Thanks.
So,
We are,
Bob,
yeah.
Bob, I started taking it because I have relatively bad neuropathy in my feet in the winter. And this winter was way easier for me. I just take one pill a day, and somebody's asking me how much. I'd have to go in and look at the bottle, but I can definitely tell you that it's made a difference, and I keep taking it. Like I still take one pill a day, even in the summer. So I think I can't tell you, whether you should keep taking it or not. Maybe Carlos knows whether you should keep taking it or not.
Yeah. I mean, I guess while I'm on chemo, maybe I'll do it 2 or 3 times a day and then see how it goes. I'm sorry, Carlos?
I said it's one of the B vitamins. It's pretty innocuous in terms of whether it's going to cause any problems in the long term. Taking too much may be an issue, but as I said, my neurologist said 100 milligrams is all you need.
Okay, thanks.
okay. We have 3 more guys. we're going to keep going, and hopefully we'll get to everybody soon. Jim Barnes, did you have update?
No, not tonight, Herb.
Okay, fine. Then Carlos, while your mic is live.
General update. I have been running PSAs 0.6, and they bumped up to 1.1. I had been on and off the duralutamide, but having been on it for 6 weeks, it brought back down to 0.9. So presumably that secondary agent is in my benefit, and we'll find out in a month's time. We'll get a second point and see which way things are moving. My bigger issue right now is, we'll move forward with lutetium, which was the plan until I finally found a consideration from my urologist that I don't have to live with a stent connecting my kidney to my bladder. It caused me a lot of discomfort, and he said, "Yeah, it's been a year. Maybe you should talk to the surgeon who can revise that." So in the process of doing that, I did speak to my oncologist, who said, the only reason I see is that some people do drop in their white count. You can also drop your platelets up as well, but those are level 3 and side effects that they call. And now, it's a pretty low percentage, so kind of gambling. I did speak to one urologist who said, "Well, if it's going to affect your immune system, I don't want you on it. I want you to wait until we're done." And we'll see a second urologist tomorrow, one who likely would be doing the surgery, and I'll run it by them just to get a second input to see what their experience has been, because they are oncology urologists, surgeons. So if anybody has experience with this, maybe they have, or they know in their own circles what the information is. And I'll be certainly glad to report that at a later time. So beyond that, second PYL, 3 months out, my overall status is unchanged. It hasn't gotten worse. Some lesions have gotten smaller, but holding steady is the general word right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Well, I've had that problem too. I mean, Carla, so what do you think what questions might you have? By the way, we're having trouble with your mic. We're having trouble hearing you.
I'm not sure what kind of questions you're thinking.
No, I mean, basically, you're telling us that things are stable.
Correct.
Well, that's good.
Yes, it is. Otherwise, I don't think they would consider doing surgery. But my question is, has anybody encountered this dilemma because they are considering a surgery that would otherwise be considered elective, and surgeons are saying, "No, we don't want you on lutetium."
Well,
if you're on other
questions.
What's the timing, Carlos? I mean, I guess that if you do this surgery, how soon after the surgery can you start the lutetium?
That's a good question. I'll let you know. But my understanding is it's about 6 weeks recovery.
Okay, so what we're really talking about and is maybe deferring Pluvicto for about somewhere between 6 to 12 weeks. Would that be
Correct.
a fair statement?
I think that's what it's come out to.
Right. So, with your disease so stable right now, you're at 0.6, it's held there for a while. I just say go get that stent removed, and it's not going to make in the overall scheme of things, as long as your lutetium is lined up and you're ready to go with it. As soon as you feel your blood counts are in the right place, then you jump in again.
Yeah.
Right.
That would be the direction I'm headed right now.
Good.
Something changes in a month. New treatment.
When do you think you might do the surgery, Carlos?
Don't know. Gotta find out. The first guy said I'm 3 months out. But once you see my partner, I see him tomorrow, and we'll see what's on his calendar.
So you're thinking of doing this in Tucson or in Phoenix?
Unfortunately, you're going to wait till the end of the month before I can see the equivalent oncologist, surgical oncologist at Mayo, and just to get that opinion as well. But I would obviously prefer to be closer to home than not.
How important is it for you to see somebody at Mayo? Because I do know a bunch of the surgical oncologists at the urologic oncologists at Mayo, and I'd be happy to write. But there's a young guy that I'm really impressed with that just came down here from Mass General, and I mean, if you want, we can reach out to Mayo but if you're happy with who's going to do this in Tucson, then I'd hang in, I'd say stay local.
Yeah, I haven't met him yet. I know he's about 2 years out of training. Don't really have a good feel for what his plan is. There are several approaches that you can take to doing this ureter revision. Dr. Tyson is the urologic oncology surgeon that I will be seeing at Mayo.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I do know that it's tricky because we're just working with someone right now who needs a biopsy from the very same area because he's got a urethral neoplasm. And I mean, it is really tricky working in that area. So my big concern, if you were going to do this in Tucson, was the experience of the urologist, the urological oncologist here in Tucson versus waiting and getting it done at somewhere like Mayo, where they definitely will have the experience. And I would really want to drill down on that.
I would agree. Unfortunately, I had a discussion with a oncology urologist. Somehow they connected me with a fellow instead of Dr. Tyson, and I don't know. I came away with some really poor feelings. Thought I was there because of for a stricture, actually for a stone. And it's like, no, I actually have an area that's a stricture that's all calcified. It's a big tube. And he hadn't read any of the op reports, any of the information I've sent. And it's like, you know what? I don't know what we're doing here because you're talking about things that have already been fixed. I've already got a stent. So I want
That was it. That was in Phoenix. That was at Mayo.
That was at Mayo.
Okay, well, I think you already said it. You've either got to go back to the guy who's the #1 guy there and see if you like him and figure out if he's good, or if you're going to do it in Tucson, just make sure they have the experience working in that area. So.
Okay. We'll be interested to see what you decide.
Thank you.
So, Jack, I'm sorry we are late, but we're here for you. You're muted at the moment. I don't know what you need to unmute. We heard you before, so there's something.
Could it be at our end?
I don't think so because I can't unmute him.
I'm back. I lost it for a moment.
Okay, you're here.
I'm here. Thank you. I appreciate your squeezing me in. I just wanted to catch you up. I had a consultation with Dr. Carroll, and first, let me just start by saying he didn't know anything about Peter, another Steve B. Rick, that's for you. So either his memory is slipping or he just didn't want to deal with it. He told me basically he doesn't believe I'm a candidate for any radiation or hormones at this point, and he thinks the benefit definitely would, the risk outweighs the benefit for an 83-year-old guy that I am, and regardless of the condition that I'm in. He says at this juncture he doesn't feel it would be a good idea for me to do that, and he'd rather me just watch the PSA kinetics and repeat the PSMA accordingly. If, as far as avidity is concerned, he definitely feels that's not the issue for me. It has more to do with, for whatever reason, the PSA level that I'm at that doesn't seem to be showing anything. So he recommended that if I'm in the area, I should come out and see Dr. Shinohara. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Yes.
Know him well. We know him well, and he's looked up a bunch of our backsides. At least 2 or 3 of us on this call.
Well, he recommended I do a truss with, if I'm in the area, a transrectal ultrasound, and I'm flying out there on the 2nd of September just to do the truss and to see Dr. Carroll in person, which I've never done. I've only seen him, fortunately and gratefully, telehealth, and he continues to do that with me in spite of whatever pushbacks are coming around all over the country. And that really helps me trust him a lot, and I'm willing to fly out there because I value him greatly. So I'm going to have the ultrasound. The thing that really concerns me most of all is that 2 months ago, I was concerned that my PSA jumped from 6 months ago was 0.36, 3 months ago was 0.37, 2 months ago it was 0.52, and last week it was 0.67. It jumped so rapidly to 0.67 over a period of 8 weeks. I just don't understand that. I don't know if there's something with my level of anxiety or some kind of epigenetic phenomenon that's making something go awry in my immune system. But I just freaked out when it went to 0.67 so rapidly. Dr. Carroll is aware of it. I sent him an email. He's in London. He said, get the truss. I'll see you when I get back. So I sent it to Dr. Danila. He hasn't responded. And I don't expect anything other than for him to say, go get your radiation and hormones like I told you to do. So I've got these two polarities. I've got Dr. Danilo pushing me to get treatment and Dr. Carroll saying, lay back and let's just watch and wait. And that's where I am.
Okay, so I'd suggest a few things. First of all, this is not an ordinary truss. This is not really a truss. This is a color Doppler ultrasound that he's asking you to get. And Shinohara is a real expert and has been for many, many years in interpreting these color Doppler ultrasounds. Dr. Carroll still relies on them. He basically won't see anybody unless you've had one. And one of our guys just saw Shinohara last week for a color Doppler ultrasound because he really, his PSA hasn't gotten high enough to expect to see anything on with a PSMA scan. Now, it works on the basis of blood flow, and the fact that the blood flow is higher to areas of cancer is what they're looking for on this color Doppler. And that's really what they're doing. This is not like it feels like a regular ultrasound, but that's not what Shinohara is reading.
There's no contrast at all. They don't use any contrast.
No, it's done with a rectal probe. So and there's no contrast. Now, what date are you doing this? September 2nd?
September 6th. I'm scheduled at 11 o'clock. to see
Right. So what I would say is that, first of all, Shinohara is very quirky. He's going to be in and out of that room like grease lightning. So you better have your questions written and handed to him. And if you do that, he's going to stick around. Otherwise, you won't even be able to get out of a crouch position on the table. He'll be out the door. Unless you happen to bring in a very pretty Asian woman with you. And I'm not kidding because I've seen that happen. Okay? So, yeah, if you bring your little geisha with you, he'll hang around. Otherwise, he is out of there.
What kind of questions can I ask him that I haven't asked Dr. Carroll?
Well, whatever you want to ask him. But you may, if you've got questions that you want to ask him, if you don't have any questions, don't ask him. But if you've got questions you want to ask him, make sure you have them written down and you hand them to him.
That's very useful.
Now, the second thing, what was the other thing that I was going to say to you about?
A PSA?
I will connect you with Steve B. Okay, who's been Peter's patient since 2009 and who has had very slowly creeping up PSA, and who also recently, I think, did a Shinohara test. But anyway, I will make sure I connect you afterwards, and he's easy to talk to. I'll give you both your telephone numbers. You can compare notes. He's a little bit younger than you, but not a lot, like 5 years younger than you, but that's about it. There was one other thing I wanted to say to you about
my PSA.
No, I forget. But that's enough to be going on with. I think that's enough to be going on with. Oh yes, I know what I wanted to say. Where's the other doctor who's recommending that you do start?
Oh, that's Sloan Kettering. I mentioned him before, Dr. Danila. Remember?
Oh, Dr. Danila. That's right.
Wonderful doctor.
Yes. Let me tell you what I would suggest you do. Okay. Set up an appointment with oh damn, I just lost his name. Hold on a minute. At Sylvester.
I haven't. Singal?
No,
not Singal.
Definitely not Singal.
Parasic.
Hold on a minute.
Belusic.
Bilusic. Bilusic. First name is Mario. Marijo.
Oh, he's
Mario Belusic.
He's at the center. He's not at Sylvester. He's at Miami Cancer.
He is at Sylvester. He's at Sylvester.
BIL.
He is in boy. Look, we'll just put it in. I'll put it in the chat window for you. You're putting it in the chat window, Herb? Yeah.
Yes.
So he's a former colleague of yours. He was an NIH guy.
Right.
He's been down there about 12 to 18 months. We've sent other men to him, and they've been very, very happy with the with the response. He's a good guy, and I would ask him what he would do. Okay, as opposed to Danila.
And
did you put it in, Herb? No.
I'm giving him a site. I'm also giving him the link.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
What did you say about Singal? I have an appointment with him next Thursday. I
wouldn't do it.
Can you say a little more?
Cancel it.
Well, yes, the reason is because he's only there for half the year, and and then you don't see him. He spends half the year in India, half the year in Miami, and we've had too many people that are frustrated because they can't get to him. And I don't think that he is anywhere near as modern in his thinking as Belusic. I think Belusic is a younger man. I think that he has good training, and
I mean, I can tell you, people when I asked about him at NIH, you know, because he had been there for quite a while, they said he's terrific, and they were sad to lose him.
It's very useful.
Right.
It's very
and
useful.
and Singal, we've had I mean, unfortunately, Al Latimer's gone now, but Al Latimer's frustrated with Singal. And we've had other guys we've recently sent to Belusic. We've met him. He's a good guy, and I would seek an appointment. And one of the reasons they brought him in is to head up that group with Singal, because it wasn't as strong a group as it could have been.
I guess I researched it, and he seemed to have the most experience, and he looked like he knew his stuff. So I didn't realize he was inaccessible and half the year in India, and that doesn't sound very good. So this is very good. Thank you. Thank you. And my PSA bounce, you have any thoughts about that before?
That's life. I mean, it's going. I mean, it's
2 months.
It's moving up, but it's not moving up that fast.
No.
And it's still pretty low. I mean, so you got time to figure this out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you see the link in the chat window to Belusic?
I'm going to look now. I have to open it up.
Okay, so it's right there. If you click on that link, you'll open it up, Jack.
Mario Belusic. Very good.
Right.
So
okay.
Did I miss
and
anyone?
He knows who we are.
I've got it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I've got it, the link right now. And have I lost you guys?
No, we're here.
All right. I'm just going to diminish this link on my computer. Come back. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that Peter didn't realize who I was talking about with Steve B, but you'll get it from the patient's side instead of the doc's side, and then you can talk to Peter about it. But he does know who. He didn't say who's that Rick Davis. I don't think he said that.
No, he didn't say that. No, he just said I'm not sure I know who B is, so maybe it didn't hit that moment. But
so those of us that are here, is there anybody I missed? Alan, did you want to say something? You've been here all along, but no, I guess not. Okay, with that, anybody else have something to say? If not, I'm going to end the recording.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for staying through till the bitter end.
Me too.
Thank